This manga centers on a protagonist who has feelings for a girl, but she has a crush on someone else. The story unfolds as he finally musters the courage to confess to the girl he's always admired, Fuwamiya. He thinks that after so much time, he will finally get a chance, but in the coldest way possible, she rejects him with a wicked smile. Akazuki ends up at his desk, barely comforted by his friend, who, despite his appearance, has faced a similar fate. With teary eyes, Akazuki expresses that his friend can't comprehend the pain of hearing the girl he liked for 3 years reject him. At that moment, Mahiru appears and mocks him, pointing out that he got rejected by her little sister. She reminds him that he never had a chance to win her heart because she's always been interested in Suzukaze-senpai. The two wonder who that person is since Fuwamiya had never mentioned it. She realizes that she gave them information she shouldn't. Kaminaga remarks that he has heard this name, hinting that the person is the president of some club. Ignoring him, Mahiru tells Akazuki that now that he knows the truth, he should give up and move on from her sister, just like any normal person would. But Akazuki isn't done yet. He still has one last thing to do: meet the guy his crush is interested in, hoping it will make him better for her. This takes him to the rehearsal club, or more specifically, the test club, a bizarre place where he's met by a creepy mascot wielding a knife. With no other option, he runs for his life. However, he soon realizes that the person inside the costume needs help because they can't get out. He looks at the name tag on the clothes and realizes the person in costume is Suzukaze, his rival. He tries to find the zipper, eventually freeing the person inside, who turns out to be a girl. It turns out that his crush's secret love is actually for another woman. He sweats heavily as he sees her wearing only undies and turns away, giving her a chance to dress up. After dressing up, the person introduces herself, very excited to see someone has entered the rehearsal club, as there are almost no members. So she introduces herself, and since Akazuki has no better excuse, he plans to lie about being interested in joining, while she explains everything they do here. While explaining, she gets too close to him, making him embarrassed, but she finds it cute. She gives him a paper explaining it's a request from the theater club. In reality, they function as guinea pigs, testing all the theater props before they're used, a quality control group that tries them out on themselves. This seems quite dangerous, though. Akazuki finds it odd that, despite their purpose, they call themselves the rehearsal club. A name like the testing club would be more fitting, but the oddity is partly due to translation, as it's said the alternative wouldn't sound as sophisticated. The real reason for the name, however, stems from the fact that 6 years ago, she was saved by clinical trials. Someone very kind tested these trials on themselves to prevent her fragile body from dying back then. It was something completely blind that could have caused difficulties. But for that reason, she fell in love with the boy who volunteered to take her place, even though they didn't know each other. To her, he was the prince of the trials, represented as someone very strange who took everything. Basically, a junkie like the ones in your neighborhood. That made her completely devoted to trials, testing, and rehearsals to help others as well. He ponders that it seems very similar to Breaking Bad. She almost tricks him into signing up for this. She pleads with teary eyes to convince him to please join the club. If he doesn't, they won't be able to keep the place, as no one has joined due to how dangerous it can be. A strong man like him would help complete some of the tests. He only agrees to get more information from her, maintaining his cover. As he asks about Mia, she jumps in excitement, revealing every detail, including bathing and sleeping together. However, when he tells his name, he is soon discovered to be the stalker of Maya-chan, who is actually his childhood friend. But she has been saying a lot of bad things about him, like how he never stops staring at her in class. The deal, in the end, is that if he joins the club, she will help him win over her friend with some kind of love training. He finds it the best opportunity to get love advice from his crush's crush. She excitedly reveals that she has expertise in relationships and romance. When he asks about her relationships, she brushes it off, revealing she has expertise in feelings of love. Though he tells her that maybe she's not the right person for such topics, since she's been in love with the same person all this time, her prince of the trials. Hearing this, she blushes, covering her face while he finds it embarrassing. She asks if he has any issues, and Akazuki, clearly frustrated, admits that for a relationship coach, he does have a big problem. She grins, brushing off his frustration, pointing out that he's still just a novice when it comes to romance. She teases him, making a comparison between someone who's been with countless people and someone who's only been with their one and only for their entire life, hinting at who might truly be the expert in romance. Akazuki, not convinced, thinks the comparison is irrelevant given his total lack of relationships, something she mocks him for. She throws in another jab, calling him Mr. Virgin, which makes him feel like she's just trying to act superior without any real reason. But deep down, he acknowledges that since Mia is clearly in love with Suzukaze, her advice could actually be helpful to him. With this realization, he reluctantly takes the club admission form and signs it, asking her to help him. Suzukaze smirks, clearly enjoying the power shift, and tells him she's looking forward to his cooperation, calling him a newbie. She tells him he should address her as Prez from now on, and he nods, albeit a bit begrudgingly. In return, she decides to call him Soropoyo, a nickname that immediately annoys him. He snaps back, accusing her of abusing her newfound power already. She leans in, teasingly sliding her shirt a little, suggesting they get right to it, which makes Akizuki flustered. He stammers, telling her to put her clothes back on, not sure what she means. Suzukaze laughs at his confusion, making it clear she's messing with him, leaving Akizuki even more embarrassed and unsure of what's happening. As she turns away, she asks him to zip up her costume. Still nervous, he moves closer to help, asking if she's really sure about trialing the costume. She confidently nods, explaining that any potential danger is all the more reason to give it a proper test. It's for the sake of the people who will use it, as well as those who made it. The goal is to ensure everyone involved can feel safe and happy, something she refers to as the spice of trailing. When she asks him to help with her zipper again, he mischievously zips it down instead. Suzukaze is startled, asking what he's doing, to which he replies that he's going to test the costume himself. She warns him it could be dangerous, but he just grins, throwing her own words back at her, calling it the spice of trailing. She can't help but smile, admitting that maybe she can leave it to him, calling him a newbie once again. Akizuki confidently reassures her that he won't let her down. Suzukaze, still amused, asks what exactly he means by that, playfully pretending she just wanted to do some trialing. She chuckles, noting how things have gotten a little out of hand. Suddenly, someone walks in, asking about the costume request from last time. Akizuki, caught mid-movement with his pants down, freezes in shock. The newcomer is horrified and immediately asks Suzukaze if she should call the police. Suzukaze, trying to remain calm, explains that Akizuki has already agreed to this. The girl Mishima screams that her explanation doesn't help at all, before quickly deciding to leave, saying she'll stop interrupting. Suzukaze, realizing the misunderstanding, tries to explain further, but as she moves to stop the girl from leaving, she slips and falls to her knees. Akizuki rushes over, trying to catch her before she hits the ground. Meanwhile, in another place, we see Mia returning home, talking with her sister, who seems to tell her not to be so mean to Akizuki. Even though he's her friend, she knows that he's not a bad person or a bad guy. Mahiru asks why Mia treats him badly. Though it seems that she is very aware of this, after all, she has been watching him for many years since she first saw his kindness in person, helping a complete stranger regardless of the harm he could have suffered. She recalls a time from their childhood when she visited Suzukaze Asahi in the hospital. Her parents had tried to reassure her, promising that things would be okay this time. The doctor explained the new medication had passed multiple clinical trials, but she was skeptical, frustrated by the repeated disappointments. She remembered how every time she'd get terrible headaches, feel dizzy, and end up puking everywhere, with no improvement in her condition. Now even her hair was starting to fall out. She was tired of being a test subject for yet another clinical trial. Her mother, clearly upset, yelled at her, but she remained composed, telling her to calm down. The doctor insisted the new medication would help and guaranteed that the side effects were minimal, but she had lost all faith by then, unable to believe in their words anymore. As this conversation unfolded, Mia stood quietly by the door, watching everything. Suzukaze's mother began to cry and plead, but she was determined and was set on her decision. Meanwhile, little Akizuki had been observing from the doorway. Without warning, he stepped into the room, grabbed Suzukaze's medicine, and took the pills himself, leaving everyone in stunned silence. He cheerfully told them he'd be visiting his little brother in the room next door, and that he'd drop by every day to show them how well he was doing, making light of the situation. His actions shocked everyone, including Suzukaze, but before they could react, Akizuki bolted for the door, smiling innocently and waving goodbye. The nurse tried to stop him, shouting that he couldn't just take someone else's medicine, but he was already gone. As he passed by Mia, their shoulders brushed slightly, and she happened to catch sight of his name on his bag. In the present, with teary eyes, Mia reflects on the real reason behind her actions, something neither of them knows. Akazuki-senpai is her crush's crush. The next day, Akazuki's friend can't believe he actually joined his love rivals club. He admits he got roped into it because they promised to coach him on relationships, and it just so happens that the club president is the crush of his crush. His friend, unsurprised, points out how relentless he is, while Akazuki grumbles that his friend wouldn't get it, not with his good looks. His friend insists looks aren't everything, but Akazuki just wants to become the best version of himself, the one Mia would fall for. Feeling cornered, Akazuki suddenly decides it's time to dash off to his club meeting. As he heads toward the club, he can't help but think maybe his friend, you had a point. Still, Akazuki convinces himself it's all for the sake of relationship advice. Even if things get weird, he's determined to stick with it. Once inside, Suzukaze greets him with excitement, announcing today's trial, a love potion. Akazuki, unexpectedly intrigued, declares his newfound love for the club, though Suzukaze teases him for being shy. Curious, Akazuki asks if the love potion is actually real, and Suzukaze confirms it, mentioning that it came from the pseudoscience club. Hearing this, he tries to leave. Suzukaze insists the pseudoscience club is more reliable than it sounds, arguing their odd name makes them more trustworthy through reverse psychology. Akazuki reluctantly stays and listens as she explains how the club's unreachable goals led to their humble, self-deprecating name. Intrigued, he asks if the club truly believes in the love potion's effects. She holds up the bottle, explaining that after drinking it, the people you see will appear as your ideal version of them. She then teases Akazuki, calling him a perv and sensing his awkward energy from across the room. Flustered, he tries to defend himself, but she decides not to give him the potion, saying it's for Mia-chan's safety too. To his horror, Suzukaze drinks the potion herself, leaving him panicked and yelling. As her eyes glaze over and she moves toward him, Akazuki, caught between panic and disbelief, firmly reminds himself that his heart is still with Mia. Even as she gets closer, he pushes her away, holding strong to his feelings. She sits across from him, feeling a bit relieved as she notes how focused he is on Mia. Her surprise is genuine, admitting it makes her feel better. Curious, Akazuki asks what happened with the love potion. She responds with a hint of sadness, saying she thought she might meet her Prince of Trials, but it turned out to be the same old plain Soropoyo. Frustrated, she pulls at her collar, calling it a letdown. He questions her about her earlier behavior, wondering why she acted the way she did. Nervously, she laughs and brushes it off, saying it was just a tease meant for fun. Aimed at a poor, innocent virgin like him. This sends him over the edge as he exclaims how hypocritical that is. He jokingly threatens to slap her for being so naive, which prompts her to retaliate, accusing him of harassment. The back and forth escalates into a playful argument, neither backing down. After their heated exchange, he comments that the potion seems to have had no real effect, suggesting they move on from the trial. She agrees but then pulls out another one, claiming this one actually tastes pretty good. It's peach-flavored. Interested, he agrees to try it, saying he's thirsty after all their yelling. With a smirk, she hands him the potion, and after he drinks it, he admits she's right. It's actually pretty good. Moments later, he spots something flash in front of him. It's a sketch of his ideal self from middle school. He instinctively covers his eyes, feeling a wave of embarrassment wash over him. Suzukaze, ever the tease, notices his reaction and can't help but poke fun at him, implying that he might be falling for her. He turns away, flustered, trying to shake off the awkwardness. She continues teasing him, pointing out that it seems he can't fall in love easily. He stutters, clearly uncomfortable, as his cheeks heat up. Just when he thinks it can't get any worse, he panics at the thought of being in love with her, struggling to even look her way. As she giggles, the atmosphere shifts slightly. She asks if she looks like his ideal person right now, and he finds himself admitting that, in a way, she does fit the image he has in his mind. This makes her laugh even more. However, as the teasing continues, he insists that this isn't love, even as she gasps at the notion of it being pure animalistic lust. He rolls his eyes, feeling both irritated and amused. When she runs away dramatically, claiming to have someone else in her heart, he tries to brush it off, insisting her antics won't affect him. But then he finds himself trying to explain his feelings, describing how looking at her makes his heart feel tight, as if it's being squeezed. His admission catches her off guard, and she jumps to the conclusion that it must be true love, which only adds to his confusion. Overwhelmed, he starts crying, adamant that it's not true love at all. As he ponders how long this feeling might last, she grumbles that it'll last forever, prompting him to get up and vow to never see her again. Before he can walk away, Suzukaze grabs his hand, apologizing and clarifying that she was only joking. The potion he drank will wear off in about 5 minutes, so there's no reason for him to freak out. He wipes his tears, realizing that maybe he overreacted. She gives him a knowing look, sensing that the effects of the potion are still lingering. With a playful grin, he admits that the potion was incredible and technically aligns with his ideal self. As she reflects on the potion's effects, she muses that it might affect different people in different ways. He nods in agreement, noting that it didn't seem to impact him much. Suzukaze reminisces about the one who saved her life 6 years ago, revealing that he's still on her mind. Her crush, the Trial Prince. Akazuki asks if she even remembers what the Trial Prince looks like, reminding her that she's only met him a few times and that it's been 6 years. She confidently replies that she's been working on age-progressed sketches of him, thinking about what he might look like as he grows up. He raises an eyebrow, teasing her about being a detective on the hunt for a wanted criminal or something. While she digs through her stuff for her latest sketch, he stands up, claiming he has work to do. She promises to send him the sketch online later, and even though he plays it cool, she can tell he's curious. As he steps out of the room, he catches a glimpse of Mia and notices she looks extra cute today. She asks if it's true that he joined the trial club. He stammers, saying he did. Maya gets all flustered, wondering why he's suddenly getting closer to her, and he brushes it off, trying to play it casually. Inside, Mia is feeling jealous, thinking about how close he is to Asahi-senpai during club activities. She reminds herself to keep the truth about the Trial Prince under wraps. She doesn't want anyone to know that her crush's crush is Akazuki-senpai. Then, Akazuki gets a message and says it came fast. Suzukaze just sent him a sketch of her crush, the Trial Prince. Mia panics and rushes over, asking what he's trying to pull by acting all confident. He's confused, wondering what she means, while she thinks to herself that they still don't know, even after she sent the sketch. Akazuki looks at the photo from Suzukaze and asks if this is really her Trial Prince. Mia leans in to see, and they're both blown away by what they see. They can hardly believe their eyes, stuttering in shock. Right then, Yu strolls in and jokingly comments on how cute they look flirting together. Still stunned, they both turn to him, their faces reflecting the surprise they felt from the photo. The scene shifts to Mia, deep in thought about her crush. She's been crushing hard on Suzukaze Asahi, the president of Shulkai High School's trialing club, for as long as she can remember. Asahi had always been there for her, and the moment she thanked Mia for helping out had completely made her day. "Thanks for helping today, Mia," Asahi had said with a smile, and Mia, filled with joy, had eagerly responded, "No problem. I'll watch any rehearsal as long as you're asking, Asahi-senpai." But then it hits her. She has a crush on someone else. The guy who saved her life ages ago, the so-called trialing prince, has almost turned into a myth in Asahi's mind, someone who feels like he exists only in her memories. But she realizes, wait, he's real. And the craziest part, he's right here beside her. The trialing prince is Akazuki Sora, the guy she's been bantering with all this time. He's in the trialing club and has a crush on her. Seriously, what are the odds? This whole situation feels like some ridiculous joke, but here she is, realizing that this guy is her romantic rival. There's no way she's going to let that slide. But even with all this drama in her head, Mia knows there's something more important she needs to deal with. Akazuki interrupts her thoughts, pointing out how strange it is that the drawing of the trialing prince looks so much like his friend. He wonders if Kaminaga-Yu could actually be the trialing prince. Mia agrees it's odd, but reminds him the drawing is highly idealized, the result of years of accumulated changes based on someone's impression of the prince. She notes that Kaminaga-senpai is annoyingly good-looking, and Akazuki begins to see how the resemblance might feel like a coincidence, maybe even fate trying to bring them together. Hearing this, Mia reacts strongly, insisting they can't let them meet under any circumstances. She describes Kaminaga-senpai as incredibly good-looking and charismatic, which makes her worry. Akazuki twitches nervously as Mia bluntly compares him to a walking temptation, though she insists she wouldn't want her crush getting close to someone like that. She reflects on her own one-sided feelings, realizing there's no reason Kaminaga would cooperate with preserving them. Akazuki offers to help make sure Prez never meets Yu, much to Mia's surprise, and reassures her he's happy to assist. They both agree that there's no chance Kaminaga could actually be the trialing prince, receiving a glare from her in response. Meanwhile, Kaminaga arrives with a burst of energy, masked and excited to see everyone. He gets a cold reaction from Sora and Mia, but brushes it off, thinking it's because of his mask. Mia, still on edge, suddenly screams about an upper-ranked demon under Asahi's chair, only to realize she mistook it for a chair leg. Suzuka-zai is baffled by how she could make such a mistake. Akizuki and Mia hide Kaminaga in a box, with Akizuki bluntly telling him to disappear. Another person questions Akizuki's intentions, but he casually claims Kaminaga was in the way. She playfully offers to help but reminds him she still needs Kaminaga for her magic tricks. Akizuki mentions he's part of the trialing club and is eager to participate. He wonders aloud what role he has to play. As the attention shifts to the next magic trick, Mia hopes Akizuki will be okay. Kaminaga, feeling sidelined, laments that Sora is stealing his spotlight. Mia jumps in surprise as she realizes Kaminaga is still there, confused about whether he was really going to let himself be decapitated. He casually admits that was supposed to be his big moment, while he watches Akizuki take the lead. Kaminaga stands confidently in front of her, debating whether or not he should introduce himself to the beautiful woman across the room. Meanwhile, she's excitedly asking him about the secret behind his magic trick. With a smirk, he teasingly responds, trying to gauge her curiosity before eventually deciding to let her in on the secret. He explains how the trick involves using a key to escape, revealing that the side of the box isn't really glass, it's actually a monitor playing a looped video. The person inside the box doesn't need to be there once the saw comes down. Before the saw hits, the magician uses the key to unlock the handcuffs and slips out through a hidden exit. She nods in understanding, showing her own key as confirmation. Meanwhile, the girl sits beside Akizuki, observing the scene. Kaminaga mentions Adashino-senpai, the president of the Magic Club, assuring everyone that things are fine. Adashino, full of excitement, rambles about the thrill of not knowing what's coming, mentioning that it's just a rehearsal and admitting she hadn't done any final checks. She's thrilled to have the trialing club as her guinea pigs, much to the nervous glances exchanged between Kaminaga and Mia. She starts to panic internally, imagining the chaos ending up on the news in just a couple of hours. Suzuka-zai, equally unsure of the situation, gulps nervously. Suddenly, Mia dashes toward a tiny hole in the wall, squeezing herself through despite the small size. Her uniform tears in the process, but she's too focused on getting through to care. Inside, she stumbles upon Akizuki, and in a flustered state, asks him why he's there. Determined, she tries to undo his handcuffs, even though he warns her that it might be too late. Despite his protests, Mia drags him out, teleporting both of them to safety. As they land, she finds herself sitting on top of Akizuki, who is clearly embarrassed. Sweating and shocked, she quickly realizes her legs are partially exposed, and he quickly covers them with his coat. Akizuki, now excited, directs a challenge toward Adashino, but she darkly replies that he's in trouble, throwing a punch his way. Suzuka-zai and Kaminaga share a laugh afterward, leaving Mia surprised by their camaraderie. As the scene shifts, she and Akizuki are walking together. Mia, feeling dejected, reflects on how she didn't know Akizuki had already escaped the box when the saw started moving. He explains that he managed to crawl away after being dropped, even though it took a lot of effort. Together, they somehow managed to stop Kaminaga from meeting the president. Mia, feeling a bit defeated, bows in front of him and thanks him for the hard work. Akizuki responds in kind, expressing gratitude for her efforts in trying to save him. Mia brushes it off, saying it wasn't for his sake. Akizuki, however, remembers something about a crush, which catches her off guard. She deflects by explaining that no one would want their crush to watch them die. Akizuki, smiling, compliments her kindness and strength, noting how she's always been like that. Mia returns the sentiment, acknowledging his efforts to protect her dignity in front of Asahi-senpai, despite having nothing to gain. As the conversation winds down, Mia suddenly calls out to him, declaring herself his rival and vowing never to lose to him. He is left confused, unsure of what she means by that. She, however, leaves with a smile, leaving Akizuki calling after her in puzzlement. The scene begins with Akizuki questioning their club's purpose, and Suzuka-zai enthusiastically responds, reminding him that their goal is to bring smiles through their trials. She then casually mentions they're about to summon Abaddon, the Lord of the Abyss, baffling him. He freaks out, wondering why they're summoning a demon, only to learn someone requested it. Suzuka-zai, however, is completely fine with it, finding joy in making others happy through their trialing efforts. Akizuki is concerned, pointing out the absurdity of summoning a demon, but Suzuka-zai brushes it off, teasing him about being scared that a real demon might show up. He doesn't feel reassured or convinced that no one will be happy if they actually succeed in summoning one. He points out something written on the back of the materials list. Seeing it, she realizes that she missed an important detail. Akazuki urges her to take the summoning process more seriously, reminding her they need specific materials to start. As they head out to gather what's needed, Akazuki holds onto the supplies, refusing Suzukaze's offer to help carry them. He clarifies that it's not out of consideration for her, but rather a simple division of labor. She finds the materials and he carries them. Suzukaze acknowledges this dynamic, and they continue their task, completing the collection of materials for the summoning. Returning to the club, Akazuki is in disbelief, questioning why someone would request summoning Abaddon of all things. They suddenly spot a boy in a wheelchair, and Suzukaze waves enthusiastically. She greets him and asks about his checkup, while Akazuki introduces himself. The boy, Ritsu, reveals he's intrigued by their activities, especially about summoning Abaddon. His mother, Mia, apologizes for Ritsu's strange requests, but Suzukaze assures her it's no problem. The trialing club is open to all requests. Akazuki, still slightly bewildered, agrees. Ritsu, excited by the prospect of the summoning, eagerly awaits their results. Thrilled to see Abaddon come to life, Suzukaze promises to tell him all about it once they'd completed the ritual, leaving Ritsu ecstatic. Ritsu excitedly asks why anyone wouldn't find demons cool, clearly unable to grasp what others might be thinking. His mom, Mia, sighs, explaining that Ritsu has been absorbed in a card game lately, thinking it's all about some card game character. The game is Diabolo Taika, a card game Akazuki also used to play. He recalls how convenient it was, especially for playing in smaller spaces like hospital rooms. Ritsu, however, is mostly obsessed with one particular card, Abaddon. He'd been dreaming of getting it, but with rare cards being so pricey nowadays, he had the wild idea of summoning the real Abaddon instead. His mom shakes her head, amused by the absurdity of it all, and apologizes for the trouble before they head off. Once they leave, Akazuki turns to Prez, asking what their club is actually about again. She smiles, reminding him that their goal is to make people smile with their trials. She's eager to get back to the clubroom and start on the summoning ritual for Ritsu, but Akazuki suddenly remembers something and asks Prez to follow him to one more place. They end up at Akazuki's house, where Suzukaze, looking a bit flustered, asks about his parents. He casually explains that both of them are at work, so they're alone. This only makes her more anxious, but she brushes it off. Akazuki, seemingly oblivious, invites her in. As they enter his room, Suzukaze can't help but comment on how this must be his personal retreat, but he quickly warns her to watch her words. Suzukaze offers to help, but Akazuki insists she shouldn't touch anything. She plops onto his bed, snuggling into the cushions, leaving Akazuki nervously pointing out her lack of awareness. He's rummaging around, looking for something, and while Suzukaze offers to wait, she can't help but notice how flustered he's getting. He explains that he's simply charmed by people like Ritsu, people who try so hard to live their lives, and he can't help but feel the need to do everything in his power to make Rikkum's wish come true. Suddenly, Akazuki finds what he's been searching for, but when he turns around, Suzukaze is no longer in the room. Confused, he steps out and notices her lingering in the hallway, deliberately avoiding his gaze. There's a pause between them, the silence heavy, until she finally asks what he was looking for. He holds up the worn-out object, his expression softening as he explains how much it used to mean to him when he played with it. There's a quiet nostalgia in the way he talks about it, as if the item holds a part of his past he's just now revisiting. He then asks for Mia's contact information, which Suzukaze provides. Meanwhile, Ritsu, glued to his phone, watches the ritual unfold through a video. He's thrilled when the message pops up announcing the trial's success. His mother hears a sound from his room and walks over to check, only to find her son grinning with excitement at the screen, delighted by the news. Mahiru eagerly suggests something fun to Akazuki, who responds in the same way. She feels disappointed and calls him out for looking disgusted, clarifying that she wasn't trying to ask him out on a date. Kamnaga also teases her, which leads to a back and forth where she wonders what he means by finally. She then reveals her real reason for asking. She needs help playtesting a board game. They head to the club, where Suzukaze welcomes them warmly. Mahiru thanks Suzukaze for helping again, which confuses Akazuki. She explains that Mahiru-chan and the other board game club members often ask her to trial their new games. Akazuki, surprised, remarks about the usefulness of the trialing club, to which Suzukaze responds with excitement, pointing that she gained a little more respect from him. Mahiru teases Akazuki for his nickname by Prez, but when he retorts, Mahiru clarifies that she's asked Suzukaze-senpai to use her first name since they met, unlike him. Akazuki tries to brush off her teasing. There's a knock at the door, and Miya appears. Suzukaze beams with excitement as Miya explains that she wouldn't miss an invitation from Asahi-senpai. Mahiru clarifies that Miya often helps them with board game tests to get the right number of players. Akazuki glances at Miya, and she jokingly accuses him of harassing her with his expression, leading him to lament how easily one can be cancelled for a look. Miya mutters something about wishing it were a 3-player game, which annoys Akazuki, making him snap back that she's the one being creepy. Mahiru, observing their interaction, wonders aloud if they'd gotten closer, sparking a wave of shocked reactions. Realizing the awkwardness, Mahiru quickly clarifies that she just meant Akazuki seems to be within Miya's attack range now. He panics, hating the way she phrased that. Suzukaze, trying to move things along, suggests they start the game, and everyone agrees, waiting for Mahiru to explain the rules. The game is a 2v2 team game, and players usually sit across from their teammates. Suzukaze teams up with Miya, who feels honored. Mahiru pairs with Akazuki, much to his annoyance. She gives a warning. Players shouldn't show their cards, even to their teammates. The objective is to make their partner perform the task on the card or guess what it is. Suzukaze remarks on the challenge of the game, while Mahiru clarifies that it's about giving subtle hints so the opposing team doesn't steal points. Miya comments that the game revolves around figuring out how to communicate with only your partner. Suzukaze then asks about the prize for winning, and Mahiru reveals 2 tickets to a test screening of a boring movie. Akazuki is puzzled about why anyone would want the tickets, while Suzukaze seems excited about the test aspect of the screening. Miya notices Suzukaze's habit of twirling her hair when she's envious, poking fun at her senpai. Akazuki questions why the president is worked up over such a dull movie, but she shows her love of testing things enthusiastically. As the game continues, Akazuki can feel the pressure building. Miya confidently uses their shared history with Suzukaze to gain an advantage, leaving him scrambling for a strategy. Suzukaze, catching on, playfully meows like the keychain animal Miya referenced from their middle school days, which completely flusters Miya. Akazuki, in disbelief, is mentally screaming at the unfairness of their tight bond being used against him. Miya beams with pride as she declares it the strength of their connection, much to Akazuki's frustration. Suzukaze excitedly announces that they're just 1 point away from winning. Meanwhile, Akazuki is in panic mode. He urges Mahiru to think fast. Knowing they're running out of time, there's an almost tangible sense of urgency as Akazuki wonders how they can pull off a comeback. Miya and Suzukaze have chemistry and momentum on their side, but Akazuki isn't ready to give up just yet. He knows they need to act quickly before the game slips out of their hands completely. The atmosphere is tense as Mahiru tries to figure out Akazuki's objective. She's confused, asking him about something he'd want to do with Miya, and he suddenly shouts that he'd like to be with her forever. Miya coughs in embarrassment, and Suzukaze checks if she's okay, but Miya insists she's fine, trying to hide her flustered reaction. Mahiru teases Miya about how hard it is to communicate subtly, hinting that Miya usually speaks without much thought. Akazuki, meanwhile, asks if Mahiru can smell his sweat, but before she can answer, Miya steps and sprays him with deodorant and shocks him with the cold spray. She jokingly tells him it's to show how she feels about him, but Akazuki is left bewildered by her actions. Mahiru finally guesses that Akazuki's objective could be a piggyback ride, and he's thrilled it's the right answer. Suzukaze, confused by the earlier sweat comment, doesn't understand what it had to do with the game, but Akazuki brushes it off. Mahiru recalls how, back in middle school, she twisted her ankle, and Akazuki carried her piggyback to the nurse's office in front of everyone. Suzukaze smiles, noting that Akazuki hasn't changed at all, leaving him confused by her comment. As the game goes on, Mahiru suggests they focus on Suzukaze-senpai's objective. Miya spots something in Mahiru's hair, and Suzukaze cheers her on for noticing it. Akazuki quickly realizes the objective is to touch someone's hair and moves to act, but before he can, Suzukaze slips from her seat. He catches her and both end up flustered. Meanwhile, Miya pats Mahiru's head and Suzukaze reveals her card, showing that touching hair was indeed the goal. Akazuki accepts the outcome with a smile, while Miya admits defeat, feeling a little disappointed. But then Mahiru reveals her real objective, for Akazuki to give a princess carry. This frustrates Miya, who realizes she could have won by touching her sister's hair earlier. Suzukaze reassures her that they had fun, while Akazuki complains that the game favors people who know each other well. Mahiru agrees and says there's room for improvement. Miya asks if they're really going to the test screening, and though Mahiru pretends not to care, she eventually agrees to meet Akazuki at the theater. As they all walk home, still bickering, Miya comments on how much they fight. Suzukaze, walking behind them, looks thoughtful. Miya notices Suzukaze's distraction and realizes that what she's envious of isn't the arguing but the test screening. Miya thinks back to her childhood, always feeling like she was a bit slow and not as sharp as others. She remembers playing with Asahi and Mahiru. They were always ahead of her, especially Asahi, who seemed frighteningly perceptive and quick. Miya had always looked up to her, seeing her as a superhero in comparison to herself. Fast forward to the present, she spots Asahi-senpai standing outside a bathhouse with her panicking. Miya reassures her, but Suzukaze's mind is elsewhere. Miya smiles, not doubting Suzukaze's antics, though she's curious about the reason behind them. Suzukaze then reveals she's on a mission to find her beloved trailing prince. She's convinced he's at the public bathhouse and even shows Miya a picture of a side profile that looks like him. She nods in agreement, and Suzukaze, fired up, declares her plan to sneak into the men's bath to find her prince. Miya tries to convince her to wait at the entrance, but Suzukaze is convinced that her prince disappears if he's not being observed, almost like a mythical creature. Just as she is about to act on her wild plan, Akazuki shows up, catching them off guard. He's baffled by the whole situation, and Miya knows this is quickly becoming a problem. Suzukaze, unfazed, decides to drag Miya into the women's bath, still determined to capture her prince. Inside the bath, Akazuki strategizes, knowing he needs to get Kaminaga out of the bath before Suzukaze spots him. As he approaches Yu, he notices him acting suspiciously near a wall, and Akazuki realizes the situation is spiraling out of control. Kaminaga then rambles about the Bathhouse being a hidden gem, much to Akazuki's frustration. Akazuki tries to maintain order, but Kaminaga keeps going, even mentioning how someone got arrested for doing something similar. As Akazuki is dealing with this, they hear Suzukaze and Miya on the other side of the wall, with Suzukaze excitedly noting how empty the bath is. Akazuki knows he has to stop Kaminaga from doing anything reckless, grabbing his arm to hold him back. But Kaminaga, focused on the club's president's appearance, ignores the seriousness of the situation. Akazuki is exasperated, but Kaminaga continues, completely oblivious to Miya's presence. Sensing something off, Miya calls out to Akazuki, and he reassures her that everything is fine, though the chaos continues. Suzukaze, confused and frustrated, wonders where her trailing prince could have gone. Kaminaga, holding Akazuki's hand with a sheepish grin, seems in disbelief at how far Akazuki is willing to go to cover for him. It's a funny situation, but he just shrugs it off, deciding not to peep, especially after Akazuki's earlier subtle diss. He figures there's nothing worth seeing anyway. Meanwhile, Asahi and Miya enjoy their bath, happy to have it all to themselves. But just when things seem perfect, Suzukaze spots something suspicious, a hole in the wall. Her curiosity gets the best of her, and she sneaks a peek on the other side, only to gasp in horror. Miya panics and screams a warning at Akazuki, which leads to Suzukaze shoving her away in frustration. They both slip, crash to the ground, and cause part of the wall to crumble. Akazuki, hearing the commotion, steps away from the wall, while Kaminaga, still confused, compares the sound to styrofoam. Akazuki just sighs, feeling defeated by the mess. When they finally emerge, Suzukaze looks embarrassed, apologizing for the unexpected wall collapse. Akazuki stays calm, joking that it's not her fault. They probably cut corners on repairs. Miya then asks about Kaminaga, and Akazuki explains that he went home on his own. Suzukaze quickly excuses herself, telling Akazuki to make sure Miya gets home safely, leaving him in charge. She throws in a cheeky comment about not letting a cute girl walk home alone after a bath, and Akazuki jokes that if that's the case, shouldn't he walk her home too? She twitches, caught off guard, and awkwardly mentions she's off to shop for new undergarments, then quickly leaves. As they walk together, Miya suddenly asks how he really feels about Asahi-senpai. He stumbles over his words, calling her his rival for affections, but not really knowing how else to describe her. Miya presses further, asking him to forget about her for a moment and think about Suzukaze as a person. Akizuki reluctantly admits that she is a great person, kind, proactive, and genuine. He even compares her to the hero of a superhero movie. Miya, surprised by the praise, almost trips and he catches her, but in doing so, he loses his own balance and falls too. He laughs it off, blaming his lack of exercise. Then he notices something's missing. Miya's hair clip. She feels her hair and realizes it's gone, just as she gets a text from Asahi-senpai saying the clip ended up mixed with her bag of accessories. Miya tells Akizuki they'll wait by a vending machine for her to return it. While waiting, he casually offers to buy drinks and they start chatting again. He asks why Suzukaze is so obsessed with the trialing prince, but Miya keeps quiet, not wanting to invade her friend's privacy. Akizuki, unfazed, says it doesn't really matter to him anyway. Suddenly, Suzukaze shows up, and as Miya starts to say something, Suzukaze shuts her down with a wave, striding over to Akizuki, who's still trying to decide on a drink. Miya teases him, asking what he's laughing about, and he reminisces about an embarrassing incident at Nishi Arakami Hospital 6 years ago. Apparently, he wandered into a girl's room by mistake and drank all her medicine. Hearing this wild story, Suzukaze is completely shocked, covering her mouth in disbelief, while Miya stands there stunned, processing it all. Akizuki is lost in his thoughts, overwhelmed by the revelation that his crush has a crush of her own, the president of the student council, Suzukaze Asahi. He feels a pang of jealousy as he observes her effortless charisma, which only makes her a more formidable rival in his eyes. Today, though, something feels off. Asahi, who's usually calm and composed, seems unusually jumpy. She rushes to reassure him, though it's obvious something is bothering her. Akizuki notices her strange behavior and wonders if she's alright. She brushes it off awkwardly, but he can tell she's more psyched out than usual. He wonders if the recent incident at the Bathhouse is still bothering her. But she quickly dismisses that idea. In her flustered state, she admits it's what happened afterward that's stuck in her mind. Asahi, lost in her thoughts, realizes with surprise that the person she's been searching for all along is actually Soropoyo, the trialing prince. She had been too shocked to continue the conversation at the time, but now she can't shake the thought. The more she looks at him, the more he fits the image of the prince she's imagined. Why hadn't she noticed before? Akizuki has always been kind and gentlemanly, and now that they're in the same club, it all feels like destiny. Akizuki, noticing how flushed she is, checks if she's feeling okay. She snaps out of her daze, wondering if something really is wrong with her, but insists they keep going with their club activities. They both focus back on the task at hand. He points out a large robot taking up space in the clubroom. It's called Fuki-kun, a robot designed to detect and respond to acts of indecency. Akizuki is taken aback by the choice and wonders who requested to trial this strange machine. It turns out the robot is a collaboration between the Robotics Club and the Disciplinary Committee. Akizuki, though slightly concerned, tries to reassure himself that it can't be too dangerous. After all, he trusts the responsible students in the Robotics Club, and it's not like they're going to cause any indecency. Unless they tried, of course. Suzukaze, now even more flustered, can't help but think about how Akizuki's heart is set on someone else. Her Miya still, she composes herself. He turns the robot powers on. It immediately starts scanning for any indecent thoughts or actions but finds nothing. The robot cheerfully encourages them to live a decent and healthy school life as they awkwardly stand there. Akizuki watches Suzukaze relax after hearing the robot's announcement, and he can't help but chuckle, feeling relieved. He muses over how he knew everything would turn out fine. Curious, he starts wondering what exactly counts as indecency to this robot. The first thought that crosses his mind is the uniform. He decides to test it by loosening his shirt, but nothing happens, so he lets out a sigh of relief. Meanwhile, Suzukaze sneaks a glance at him and blushes intensely. Out of nowhere, the robot suddenly detects indecency, setting off its alarms. Akizuki is caught off guard, shouting in disbelief at the delayed reaction. Suzukaze, flustered by her earlier actions, starts getting frustrated with herself. As the robot goes into destroyer mode, he panics, comparing the situation to something out of a sci-fi movie. He quickly fixes his tie, trying to calm the robot down while complaining about its oversensitivity. While chaos erupts around him, Suzukaze is calmly absorbed in her phone. Eventually, the robot powers down, declaring Indecency has been halted. Akazuki laughs it off, saying the detection system is clearly faulty. But she nervously replies that she thinks it's actually very accurate. He notices her still busy with her phone and wonders what she's up to, but she brushes it off. Akazuki then suggests they should be testing the robot's attack capabilities, to which Suzukaze responds by recalling something important. Determined to step up as the club president, she declares it's time to create some indecency to test the robot. She suddenly moves closer to him, making his heart race. When she notices he's not flustered, she asks why. Akazuki, having grown used to such moments, explains that he's no longer affected by things like this. Disappointed, she tries one last time to see if the robot would react to her attempts to seduce him, but nothing happens. As they continue, she quietly reflects on how difficult it is to change their relationship so easily. Deep down, she's resolved to suppress her feelings, wishing for him to be with the one he loves. But just for this moment, she allows herself to stay close to him. Before they can get any closer, the robot starts detecting indecency again and reactivates its destroyer mode. Panic sets in, and they quickly back away from each other. The robot, now in full attack mode, announces its intention to extinguish heat sources, spraying them with water. Dripping wet, they both look at each other and burst into laughter at how ridiculous the situation is. Suzukaze teasingly asks Akazuki why he told her to move away earlier. He admits that maybe an indecent thought or two crossed his mind when she got that close, which makes her grin mischievously. As he looks away, flustered, she playfully keeps the reason to herself, driving him even more curious. His heart races, and it doesn't go unnoticed by the robot, which suddenly declares the detection of extreme indecency and activates genocide mode, sending Akazuki into a full-blown panic once again. Mia and Suzukaze are out in the field, both dressed in sports attire. Mia looks uncomfortable, constantly adjusting her outfit, clearly not used to it. Suzukaze notices and tries to reassure her, telling her she looks great, which immediately makes Mia blush. Just then, Akazuki shows up, wearing a bizarre Joker outfit, and compliments her as well. Mia, unfazed, responds coldly, saying she doesn't look as good as Asahi-senpai. On the other hand, Asahi starts trembling at the sight of Akazuki, but manages to smile, thanking Mia for helping them test out all these uniforms. Mia, flustered but sincere, assures her that she'll always be there when needed. Meanwhile, Akazuki is overly enthusiastic about the chance to see Mia in different outfits, earning a threatening comment from her about throwing him into the river. Akazuki quickly defends himself, explaining that it's a costume for the street performer club and not some restaurant mascot. Suzukaze reflects on how she brought Mia along to support Akazuki's romantic pursuit, but watching their interactions, she realizes this might be more difficult than she thought. She tries to stop the escalating chaos by suggesting they take a break, but Akazuki immediately tears off his shirt and rushes off, announcing he's going to get something to eat. Suzukaze, frustrated, watches him run off, thinking how he wasted such a perfect opportunity to make progress. How is she supposed to help him if he keeps running off like that? Mia, on the other hand, simply smiles, commenting that Akazuki never changes. As they walk together, Mia suddenly gets serious, stopping Suzukaze to apologize. She admits to hiding the fact that Akazuki was the trialing prince all these years, even though she knew how Suzukaze felt about him. Tears well up in Mia's eyes as she bows, guilt weighing heavily on her. But Suzukaze's response is unexpectedly lighthearted. She tells Mia that it's fine and even thanks her, explaining that because Mia kept it a secret, she was able to enjoy her own fantasies for the past 6 years. It allowed her to get to know Akazuki without any preconceived notions, and in fact, if Mia had told her earlier, she might have just dismissed him as different from her imagination, ending the fantasy then and there. Suzukaze smiles, expressing her gratitude for the opportunity to experience an incredible reunion with the trialing prince and get over her obsession. She reassures Mia that she's completely fine with her accepting Akazuki's feelings now. Mia, shocked and overwhelmed, struggles to respond, her voice trembling as she mutters a faint "never mind." Suzukaze is in shock, wondering what on earth Akazuki could have done to make Mia hate him so much. She thinks about Mia's connection to Akazuki, realizing they must have gone to the same middle school. Mia, clearly irritated, confirms it, much to Suzukaze's surprise. Suzukaze can't help but feel that the unfortunate one here is Akazuki, dealing with such a reaction from his crush. She wonders aloud if Mia's being too harsh, but she insists that treating Akizuki like a sworn enemy is entirely normal. Suzukaze finds that a bit extreme, arguing that having a sworn enemy isn't really typical, and that he doesn't seem like a bad guy to her. Mia's frustration shows as she admits that her sister says the same thing, but she knows Akizuki too well, not just from middle school, but even earlier. Suzukaze is taken aback and asks for clarification, but Mia doubles down, declaring that she hates Akizuki more than anyone else. Confused by her intense dislike, Suzukaze tries to make sense of it all as they enter the shop. Mia quickly picks a drink, moving with such certainty that Suzukaze can't help but notice how fast she is. Mia had already decided what she wanted, making things quick. Suzukaze apologizes for making her wait, and they head to the counter. As they do, a group of students spots Mia, and Suzukaze watches curiously as the group approaches. Mia quietly acknowledges them, explaining that they were all in the same club during middle school, which surprises Asahi since she didn't know Mia had joined any clubs back then. The group reveals that she was in the literature club with them, though Mia admits she quit after half a year. One of the guys in the group teases her, pointing out how she still refers to herself in a particular way. They start to giggle, and someone even pats her on the head, commenting on how she hasn't grown taller, calling her cute. Annoyed by the teasing, Mia slaps away a hand when one of them tries to touch her hair. She shifts into a fighting stance, glaring intensely at the group. The tension silences them, but Yukai, still teasing, brings up how she's always been like this, along with the fact that she had the worst writing in the club, constantly dragging down the mood. Mia, now visibly irritated, grows even more upset. Suzukaze, not having any of it, steps forward angrily toward Yukai, demanding to know what his problem is. Moya tries to calm her down, saying it's not worth it. But Yukai continues, reminiscing about some guy named Akizuki who used to be in the club. He calls Akizuki the worst writer ever, someone who tried to write out ridiculous fantasies and be taken seriously. Yukai also mocks another former member, Mia, for writing cliched wish-fulfillment stories. Suzukaze's expression darkens as she responds with a chilling remark about how Yukai has treated Mia. She vows to properly pay him back for everything he's done. Yukai and his group, clearly intimidated, back off and quickly make their exit, bidding a sarcastic goodbye. Suzukaze continues glaring at them, her aura radiating menace. She mutters something about receiving a request for trialing poisonous mandrakes, saying it's perfect timing. Mia, confused by the comment, asks what Suzukaze means by that. Suzukaze quickly smiles, saying she's just kidding, and urges Mia to move on. As they walk, she asks if Suzukaze isn't curious about the literature club. Suzukaze says she'd like to hear about it if Mia doesn't mind, but she's pretty sure Mia would rather not talk about it. Suzukaze then notes how it's been a while since she's seen Mia reject someone so firmly, to which she mentions she treats Akizuki-senpai the same way. Suzukaze isn't convinced, feeling like it's a bit different this time. As they return to the ground, Suzukaze spots Akizuki playing with some kids. She wonders aloud if he's already finished his beef bowl, only for Mia to clarify that he never went in the first place and didn't intend to. Suzukaze feels a bit confused by this. Akizuki notices them and rushes over, asking if they're starting again. Suzukaze, a bit caught off guard, says they haven't yet, then asks what he's been up to. Akizuki begins to mention ramen, but Suzukaze interrupts, reminding him he was supposed to get a beef bowl. He looks slightly embarrassed. Meanwhile, Mia overhears the kids chattering, expressing relief that they finally had enough people, though they complain about someone not being great. As Akizuki drinks water, Suzukaze suddenly feels shy. Akizuki then asks Mia if she drank from the bottle, to which she coldly confirms, sounding disgusted. Akizuki, grateful, dances in appreciation, saying he'll repay her in the future. Mia, irritated, ups the price, charging him 20% extra. Akizuki, surprised, reminds her it used to be 10%, leading to an argument that shocks Asahi. Mia gets clearly annoyed and tells Akizuki he's being stupid and reminds him they'll be trying on uniforms after this. Just as Akizuki prepares to drink more water, Mia punches him, bringing up a past lecture from middle school, telling him to think before jumping in to help others. She complains that he hasn't changed at all. Akizuki, now trembling and apologetic, admits fault, not just for today, but for everything, and complains about the punch hurting. Suzukaze, watching them fight, gasps quietly. She starts to realize, with a bit of sadness, that this might be more complicated than she initially thought.
Here I am,